That's
No,
YouTube.
yeah. You can just upload to YouTube.
Have you guys been doing several of these live streams, or is this like your first couple or
All right,
something? I don't
I
know.
think we're live
Audio
again.
is working.
You know the zip ties one earlier. I didn't go in that
Audio
one,
is live, by the way.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Should we restart or?
Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
go ahead
I
and
think we should
restart. Yeah,
So
you probably can't see my camera at this time, so oh well.
yeah, we can. Unfortunate. All right. So,
right.
hello. Welcome to our second live stream once again. We have two members of FTC Team 7477 Super 7 with us. If they would like to introduce themselves, they can right now.
All right. My name is Rohan. I'm the lead programmer on Super 7, and I'm a senior this year.
My name is Yash. I am the lead designer on Super 7, and I'm also a senior this year.
All right. So today we have four members from FTC 18172 Uplift. I'm Alex. I'm one of the co-captains, and I do a bit of both hardware and software.
I'm Devin. I'm also one of the co-captains, and I do software.
I'm Matthew, and I'm also on software, and I'm a senior at Haggerty.
And I'm Nitin. You can't see my face right now, but I'm here, and I'm a junior, and I mostly work on hardware and CAD. All right.
All right.
Let's. All right. So we'll start back with your team history once again.
So our team has been robotics team, like including FO and FTC for the past 10 years. We started FTC in the Cascada Psych year, and that was our first year going to World Championships. So ever since then, we've made it to Worlds every year except for this year. And our best robot performance year would be our Velocity Vortex year, where we made it to the semifinals in the Houston Championship. We unfortunately lost few autonomous errors because of the inconsistent lighting in Minute Maid Park, and that's why our autonomous didn't work in the competition, and that ruined our game, I guess. And then after that, in our relic recovery year, we came back with a bang, and we returned with the World Championship Inspire Award at Houston. So that would be our most, I guess, illustrious accomplishment. And then ever since then, we've been striving to do better in terms of robot and notebooks. So we've been working hard and diligently. And this year, unfortunately, we didn't make it to Worlds, but Worlds was canceled.
So we don't count those.
All right.
So
Okay.
because Super
Oh,
7 did win the Inspire Award at Worlds, we're going to focus a lot on their documentation and other things that kind of affect the kind of award side of things, as well as their robot performance and stuff like that.
All right. We'll go ahead and get started. So we'll start with how you guys function as a community team. Since you aren't really tied to a school, how does that impact how you function with your meetings and events?
Right. So our meetings are we have like weekly meetings that occur on the weekends. So they go from 4 to 8 on Saturday and 2 to 6 on Sunday. And on top of that, depending on what work needs to be done, extra team members come in during the week to work on it. So in terms of like planning and scheduling, we usually make a kind of holistic plan for like pretty important deadlines up to each competition. And then based on those deadlines, people try to come in and finish what needs to be done.
And then on the membership side of things, we maintain the amount of members we have through expos, and we reach out to kids in the community who are interested in doing robotics or learning more about robots or doing FTC in general. And that's one of the things that's really great about Super 7 is that we are able to accept anybody who we want to, and anybody who's interested in robotics can always join.
All right. So as a community team, What was I gonna ask? What was asked? And this was your question. Can you ask it?
Oh, how has
Yeah.
COVID impacted you guys? Since you are a community team, you don't really have to deal with like school shutdown and stuff. Is it limiting your meeting size, or how are you guys getting around meeting in the COVID era?
So the COVID thing really has impacted a lot of school teams, and we understand that. But for us, it's not really that big of an issue because we are a community team and we all have and we're all able to like meet at one person's house. We haven't had any physical meetings so far this start of this season. We've planned out a few things online and on Zoom and stuff like that. But other than that, we haven't started our physical meetings yet. But when we do, we'll be sure to have proper protective equipment, whatever we need.
Okay.
All right. Since you guys have a lot of first experience and or you've been first for like 10 years, how do you guys sustain your team in terms of funds? Is it do you have like long sustaining partnerships with or sponsorships with companies, or do you have to cycle them out every year or something? How do you approach that?
Well, okay, so we have a few sponsors that we pretty much contact every year in order to get funding. But on top of that, we try to look like actively look for any sponsors that we can get. So we have like sponsorship letters that we send out, and we always try to keep our sponsors updated so they know what's going on with the team, and so they don't like pull out their funding because they don't think we're a team anymore or things like that. So since we have been going for so long, we have a lot of old sponsors that inevitably have dropped out. So in order to fill that like replacement place, we try to go and find new people. And yeah, as Yash said, the outreach events, we always look for sponsors and mentors in those also.
As such an experienced team, is there a way you would recommend for other teams to look for sponsors? Is there a way that you guys do it that you found to be more successful than others?
I would personally recommend just contacting as many people as you can. The more, the better, pretty much. So the more people you contact, the more likely you are to get a response.
Mm-hmm.
And through those people, you can always find like additional connections. And there's a lot of companies who are always willing to help out teams in STEM and robotics and whatever. So there's a lot of people you can find will fund you.
Mm-hmm. And do you guys have any connections with companies that may not provide monetary funding, but like sponsorships, like in kind, something like that? You guys, I don't know how I'm trying to phrase this, but like,
This kind of ties into manufacturing capabilities as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, are you saying like sponsor? Yeah. Like, are you asking about sponsors that like help us with things other than like money, practically?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So we have a few companies who help us with stuff. One company is Marine Fasteners. They provide us with a lot of our screws, zip ties, all that stuff. So they're that. We also have Dot Decimal, who helped us machine our plates this year. We decided to go with the CNC aluminum plates this year, so they are the ones who helped us with that. They also do provide us some monetary support, but they also help us with machining, Lexan printing, and all that stuff. And then we have UCF, which helps us with laser cutting our wood and 3D printing occasionally.
Oh, for anyone wondering, UCF is the University of Central Florida.
Okay. Are we moving on?
All right.
Kind of tying into that, how do you feel your machining capabilities, your capabilities have improved over the years? Because I know a lot of our robots' design has become a lot more sophisticated in the past couple of years for the whole of FTC.
So over like the years of FTC, robots have started to become more and more custom with access to 3D printers and CNCs and laser cutters and all that stuff. So we tried to stay with that trend and also like advance our robot in more ways. So we started out as a team that was made out of entirely kit parts. And then as the years progressed, we became more and more custom. So our first full custom robot was in our relic recovery year, and ever since then, we've had custom robots for all of our competitions, and they've helped us a lot. And they're very reliable in some aspects, and then other aspects they're cumbersome and difficult to work with because sometimes we don't plan for certain things. So custom robots have its benefits and its downsides, and we've tried to advance our robot with our access to all the technology of laser cutters and CNC.
Okay.
All right. So can I ask, what's your strategy going into each season? Just like the initial.
Right after kickoff.
What's the first thing you do at the day of kickoff?
Well, the first thing we do actually is we just have like a Zoom meeting pretty much, and we just brainstorm every single idea that comes to mind, like strategies, robot ideas, just anything that's on your mind pretty much. So then from there, we kind of delve deeper into that list, picking off things that we don't want, adding new things, refining things. And then once we get to like a certain point when there's not too many, we start to design, prototype all of those ideas. And then we go from there in building. And then once we're to that point, we pretty much just make a schedule, and then the rest is just history.
Mm-hmm. And then we make sure to optimize for points. So we aim for the things that have the greatest amount of points as we start the season, because we know we're not going to be able to accomplish everything in our first competition.
Mm-hmm. I think even in the two live streams that we've done, we've found that a lot of the good teams optimize for points early in the season. Try to really have some strategy in the way that they build.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously you guys have had very competitive robots for the past 6 years, I believe. Why do you think you guys have been able to stay so competitive? And why do you think you guys were competitive in the first place?
So I think our competitive nature is part of our history. So since we were part of like the early FTC time where people were having basic robots that are nowhere near as complicated or sophisticated as they are today. So with the knowledge of the past, we basically carried that into the future, and we understand how the whole process works, and we're better acquainted with the whole tournament system um, and the whole robot system better than other teams are, which allows us to focus more on things that we know are more important. And so that knowledge helps us stay competitive because we optimize on the things that are important, and that's really the essence of our competitive nature.
Right. And since we've been a team for so long, it's inevitable that we lose some people along the way. So we always make sure that like skills are passed on. So if our lead programmer is like leaving, for example, we need to make sure that they've trained a person to take their spot. So we try to make sure that no role is left empty, essentially.
Kind of going off of that, do you guys use like a buddy system to have like one experienced and one relatively new member, or how do you guys train your new members?
Well, somewhat, but I wouldn't call it a buddy system. So essentially, the new members kind of pick and choose what kind of topics they're interested in, and they try out what all of them pretty much, and then they finally choose which one they want to go to, and they kind of just shadow you. And over time, you can start giving them like more and more things to do, activities, topics to learn, and then eventually they should be able to do what you're doing. Like one thing that Alex did for me is that he let me mostly take over in like a competition, so I could program the robot in the heat of the moment, even though he was still there, so I could have that experience.
So I kind of want to talk about your history a bit more because it is such a unique one with the team name and like how close knit that actual group was. Knowing some of you guys personally, if you guys want to talk about that for just a little bit, I just want to emphasize that because it is such a unique thing.
Oh, like the history of our team and like how we came about, pretty much.
Yeah, just like the team name at least, because that is just a nice thing.
All right. Well, okay, so we originally started like on our first year as 7 members. So that's where the like name Super Seven came from. But as we grew as a team, we obviously didn't have 7 members anymore. So we like we instead had it represent our 7 keys to success, which are on the back of our shirt. So these are things that we keep like in our minds, like in our day-to-day lives, and especially in robotics. So we just thought they were important. So we wanted to like link our team name to something that we could like use, pretty much.
Yeah.
All right. Well, back to the robot stuff, I guess. If anyone else has a question, I think I've been talking a lot.
All right. Do you guys do any kind of? I think you guys talked a little bit about this. But in the past, have you done any work in the off season in preparation for the season? Probably not this year with COVID, but in past years.
Yeah. So we used to host a summer camp every off season where where that's one of the places where we get a lot of new members. That's where I came onto the team. Um, so we usually do that, and we train kids of all ages about FTC, about FLL. We have them make their own robots. We make a competition for them and stuff like that. And then we always, in most off seasons, just not this one because we haven't had a chance to, we come together, a few of us on the team, and we start prototyping robot designs. So last year we had our whole drivetrain done before the season started. So our Mechanum bot was fully built and optimized by the time the season started, so we didn't have to focus on making our drivetrain. So we try to make all the fixed modules at some point during the off season, so that we don't have to worry about them in the season, and we can focus on other tasks.
Right. Yeah. We essentially try to make like game like elements of the robot that aren't game specific. So as Yash said, your drivetrain, you can have the same drivetrain on practically any game. Not always, but pretty much anything. So taking a drivetrain and making it in the off season helps alleviate a lot of the stress and the workload that goes into the season itself, because there's not much time.
Mm-hmm. And I know last year, or I guess this year, was the first year that you guys tried or did implement odometry into your robot, which is like the big new thing in FTC. I know you guys had some success with it, and if you guys want to talk about that and how you guys work with that.
Well, are you asking like how we like got the idea or how we implemented it?
Your experience with odometry, essentially.
Yeah.
Oh, it's annoying. There's a lot of things that go into it. In order for it to work, you have to have good software and good hardware, and like if practically everything has to be right. So Yosh did a really good job like designing the wheels that we would use for our odometry pods. If you guys are familiar with odometry, you need at least 3 wheels, one on each side for one axis, and then another one for the other axis. So if any slight like mistake exists in those odometry pods, then your odometry is going to be completely off. So then for the programming side, it practically works the same way. The base code for it isn't too complicated, but integrating it into everything else that needs to be done in autonomous and even tally up if you're if you want to, that's really hard because you'll find that a lot of things, like the way you do things, won't apply with odometry anymore. And another issue that becomes apparent with odometry is encoder slip, because it's inevitable pretty much. So you find that a lot of the values that you're getting are different than what you should be getting. So you have to account for that in your code. And I mean, I would say that it's overall a better system because it accounts for mistakes like your robot hitting something or like just misalignments a lot better than like other types of control systems do. But there's also drawbacks to odometry.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a very valid way of looking at it.
Just as like an addition, one of the things that we had trouble with was the way we had aligned our wheels. So initially we thought that the wheels could be in any not any orientation, like any angle to the ground. And then we later found out that we should have kept it in a parallel angle that way it stayed more consistent throughout the game. And that was one of the things that we found out after a few months of experience with odometry, and it was one of the most annoying parts of it. So.
All right.
So, what were the major challenges you faced when implementing your odometry system? I know, like, ESD at the states competition was, like, it messed up your odometry a lot, and with a lot of other teams as well. So, like, what other challenges have you guys faced with it?
Oh yeah, well, what's it called? If the maths change, the program changes, and that's the most annoying thing I've ever seen. You have to account for changes in maths. So we had to like change our program. I mean, every single time we went on a different math, like there was some stupid coefficient that I had to change. So that's one really annoying thing that we had to face when implementing it. And another thing was that you had to get like the odometry pods perfectly, as I said before. So we had to make sure the wiring was right. And I'm pretty sure like the first few times that we did it, we had our wiring incorrect because you had to do some soldering, and I'm not 100% sure what other things you had to do, but Yash can probably add to this. But from the software side of things, it was pretty much just encoders at that point. Like once you hooked it up on the hardware side, but once you get those encoder values, you need to convert it to XY positions, and then take those XY positions and make a movement program, and then you can make paths out of it or things like that. So the software side was mainly just getting the software to work, more so than like the hardware side was like fixing issues in the hardware.
Were there any like fine-tune things that you could do in terms of the hardware?
Hardware? Yeah.
In terms of the hardware, like some of the things that we found out through other teams and through our experience was that when you use odometry, you want to make sure that you spring it as hard as you can into the ground. We initially thought that it's better if you leave it less sprung into the ground. That way the robot doesn't catch and flip up sometimes. That used to happen to us, but that was due to a completely different issue. So we found out that if the harder you spring it into the ground, the more accurate the readings you'll get is, because then the wheels have a smaller chance of actually leaving the ground or actually having flips. And then other things on the hardware side was that to make sure that your sideways wheel, or like the wheel that goes like, I don't know how to describe it, but like the wheel that goes perpendicular to the robot. Yeah, perpendicular to the robot. That wheel, you want to make sure that that wheel is at a right angle to the ground at all times, or as best as of a right angle as you can. That way, the Omni wheels that are attached don't actually like mess up your readings. Because if you're not on the proper roller, then sometimes it just slides and it doesn't actually get proper reading.
Mm-hmm.
And then another thing is, I know like with the recent development of the rev encoders, a lot of teams are going to be switching to odometry this year or trying it out. But to make sure that those teams, or like anybody who's trying it, probably should make sure that the hardware side is right, because it's usually the most important thing. That's usually where most.
If I may ask, what encoders do you guys use?
We use the US Digital S14 encoders. So
okay.
those are the only ones that we knew of at the time.
Yeah. Now there's a lot of different.
Yeah, any decent encoder will work. You just have to know how many ticks per revolution and some more like specifications.
Yeah. All right. So, obviously, as such a long-standing team, you guys have faced a lot of issues as well as successes. So, how do you guys deal with issues nowadays? Like, how do you deal with that last-minute issue that comes up the day before competition?
Stay up the night before. Well, depending on the severity of the issue, we just pretty much work till it's fixed. Like, if it's like something that we can't get around, then yeah, like if it's a last day issue that we don't know what's happening, we just sit through it and fix it. But if it's an issue that can that has like more solutions or like more creative ways to get around it, then we go to our like process of like brainstorming, prototyping, designing, like things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but if it's just like a last minute issue, we basically try to stay up as long as we can to fix it. and we always have team members who are working on the robot if there is an issue that comes up.
Okay. I think, yeah, before we move into some of the other topics, I just want to ask, so let's say you are designing a robot, right? Like you are in the process of, like you're past prototyping, let's say. So everything in prototyping worked as expected, and then you built the actual robot and something seems to be a bit off. What would you do at that point?
That happens all the time. I'm
Exactly.
telling you, CAD is almost never 100% accurate for us. Like, it's good. It gives us a great outline and everything, and it gives us a great term of like what to build and where to put things. But there's always things that we can't account for, or we don't account for, like screw holes and things like that. So whenever we come across something like that, we always have to come up with what we call a ratchet solution. So some kind of solution that works and that we will fix in later iterations. So like I guess our not official motto is to just have like make something that works even if it doesn't look good. So we try to when we come across things like that, we obviously have to forego the aesthetics and focus more on the functionality.
Yeah, if you ever look close enough at a robot, you're gonna see like random like zip ties, strings, ropes, like badge ties everywhere.
Yeah.
All right. If no one has any more questions on hardware, software, robot aspects, I think we should move into some of the outreach, notebook, that side of things.
Yeah, I had a question about, so in your guys' use with like odometry and things to kind of help with the consistency, how do you see yourself like improving that over the years? Do you think you're going to go different approaches, or you'll stick with the ones that have worked in the past?
Well, with the way that we did our odometry, we ended up changing our like the orientation of our wheels like 3 days before the tournament. So I had to redo all of my calibration. So I literally didn't have like proper values to work with. So next time I'm going to make sure that like we have a lot more time to actually calibrate our odometry. But I think the methods that we use to do so were fine from what I know. But
Yeah.
you can always contact like other teams who have odometry, who've done it before, and ask what they've been doing. Because I talked to like the video teams a lot since they are both implementing odometry.
I think we're gonna probably keep the hardware side the same. There's no real hardware issues once we've worked everything out. So there's no point in us switching to different encoders or different hardware designs as because we already have something that we know works.
Okay. All right.
If you have any questions in chat, I don't think there's anything right now, but we'll move into our outreach portion, non-robot. Right. Can you talk a bit about the different types of outreach that you do on like a local scale and larger scales, like national, international?
So we have like a variety of different outreach events. So we, on the local level, we have things like during this COVID time, we had this whole mask thing where we 3D printed masks and gave them to our local, um, like our local, what do you call it, local doctors and medical professionals who needed help with that. We also have expos that we work with for FRC teams. So Exploding Bacon hosts expos for first teams, and we attend those. We attend the NASA event for oftentimes special needs kids or disabled students who are trying to learn more about robotics. Um, we attend all of those, and that's more of a regional level. And then on the national level, we don't really have any national organizations that we work with other than FIRST. We've been FIRST showcase team for a while, so we work with them to create the hardware inspection videos and other videos that they need us for. So that's just one of the national things that we do. I'm not sure if Rohan has anything to add.
No, I don't think so. I think you covered all of it.
Yeah, so it's just things like that that we focus.
All right.
Oh, well, actually, one of the biggest local things that we do is the summer camp that I mentioned earlier, but we haven't been able to do that this year. But that's just one of our like like spotlight event, I guess. And that's just one of the biggest things of Super Seven. Giving
Is
back to
there
our community.
anything that you're looking forward to doing or want to do during this this current period?
So we've been working on talking about creating some kind of live stream like you guys are doing right now. A lot of teams have done it, and we plan on implementing something like this too. We'll see where that goes, but other than that, we have a few virtual events that we want to work towards. We're not exactly sure how they're going to work or what the actual like constraints or restrictions are, but
I'm on a live stream.
we hope to attend some of those and hope some material.
All right, so we know you guys do a lot of business outreach as well. So can you talk a bit about that and how you guys plan on doing it, approaching those virtually as well?
Like how we're gonna attend the business outreaches?
Or how, if you're still planning on doing them into the season, and if you are, then
We haven't really talked about it, but I would assume that we would probably host a Zoom meeting or something like that, just to talk all the business professionals in like a safe manner. So yeah, pretty much the same kind of like operations, but just in a different medium.
okay, makes sense.
Assuming like the whole COVID situation calms down a little bit, then we might be able to like go in person with protective equipment, and that would actually be very helpful because one of our biggest events is with Florida Turnpike, and that's where we show up our robot mid-season. Talk with engineering professionals.
Yeah. You guys mentioned previously, as well as like right now, that you guys usually maintain pretty good relations with all of your sponsors.
Right.
Yeah. How do you think that's like helped you? What do you think that really does to benefit you?
Well, I mean,
Just
and like bottom line, it helps us keep our sponsors and just make sure that they know that we're still active. And it also helps that we can show that we appreciate what they've been doing for us and like what they're like sponsoring us with, like either that being money or like a hardware support in that sense. Is actually going to like good use and it's not just being wasted. So we just try to keep them in the know pretty much of what we're doing. As I said before, we send out newsletters to just give them an update.
So like for example, with Decimal, they provide us with all of these parts that we use, so we make sure to provide them with robot updates at the end of every season and our season updates so that they know where we're going and what we're doing through newsletters and other stuff like
All right. Let's see. Do you guys have any tips on if teams are looking to expand their outreach programs for this upcoming season? Either albeit virtual or in person, however this plays out.
I think if teams are looking to expand outreach opportunities, it's a lot of what we said for the sponsorship. Make sure you contact everyone, as many people as you can, because the more people you contact, the more likely you are to get opportunities that are both online or in person. So for teams that are looking to do that, they can contact other FTC teams, other FRC teams, and other teams in general or other organizations and see if they can arrange something or if something's already been arranged that they can work towards.
Is there an outreach that you guys are particularly proud of that you guys have done in the past? Like something that really like is a good outreach, like something that you guys. Yeah.
I kind of like the AT Makers outreach event.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one where we like it's called adapted toys so that kids with disabilities could use them. That was fun, and we got to like solder and do a lot of like things that we do in robotics. So it's like fun in that sense also.
And the way we got that contact was actually through the FRC Expo. We were looking around, looking at other companies and the things that they do, and we found AC Makers, and we were very interested in what they were doing. We got their contact, and then a few weeks later, we were invited to their Adaptathon, which was basically just an event where they adapted toys for kids with disabilities so they were easier to use. And I think that's one of the events that really showed the power of communication, contacting, and that's another thing that's just really fun for the whole team to do.
I can agree with that. It was a pretty fun one. All right. Let's move on to some of your documentation. Documentation is and has been pretty important to winning awards within FTC in the past, and 2per7 is probably at the top of that list.
Not just at
I
the
wouldn't
top.
say that.
Okay, you guys are pretty close.
For every meeting we have like meeting notes, which are essentially a list of what the major events that happened that day, who worked on it.
Your audio cut out.
Josh, can you take over for a second? Yeah, okay. So for every meeting, we basically have meeting notes that tell us who did what's been done, what our plans are for the future, and stuff like that. And then some things that we include in our notebook are personalized things, like things that show our team has character. So we do that throughout our notebook, for example. We show that our notebook has color by doing in our team colors. We have funny pictures throughout our notebook that just make the judges like see that our team is more than just a robotics team, and that we're like more than the sum of our parts, I guess, to be cliche. And then we include a lot of math calculations and a lot of physics calculations, and we show that we really optimized our robot for those things because a lot of our team members have backgrounds in like high levels of math and high levels of physics. So we use that knowledge to our advantage, and we show that we've done intensive research on robotics concepts.
And can you guys hear me now? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. I'm sure things are going to be different this year with the new specifications for the notebook. But like I think it's the same idea. Like it's just a summary, not a summary, but like it's a more bare bones version of the old notebooks.
I think we've had a good template for a few years, and that we've had a good design. We might have to update a little bit because of the whole theme of FTC changing as we go on, but yeah.
If you guys have some examples of some of your notebook, I think that'd be really nice to demonstrate to the audience.
Yeah.
I have some examples of our CAD section, so the way we arrange our robot pictures and our robot stuff. I'll share my screen on that part.
Yep.
Can you explain what you try to really emphasize in like the CAD section? Is it like design? Is it those the mathematics, the physics?
Well, I think in the whole thing, we're trying to show progression. Like we're trying to show that the season went on, we learned from our mistakes and we grew from it. So that comes in the form of like all the designs and the mathematics calculations. Like every single thing that we have has a reason for it. So we try to show the reason for it and like how it led us to future things through that.
So we usually split it up into two sections. This is like our picture section. So this shows that, so now this is all of our CAD that we have updated so far. As the judges look through, they'll see our rendered pictures of our robot. And then we have CADs of every single robot that we've made, whether we've made it from a base or whether we've actually CADed the whole thing. So this would be our second season robot. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yeah.
Alright, so this would be our league tournaments robot right here. And then as we keep going, we come to our almost fully custom one, which is this one. This is the one we took to state.
I'm on the live stream.
And you can see that we have all these pictures in it and whatever. We have the sensors, the electronic, the screws. We have everything in there. And then we have models of our major like components or major modules. So we have our sweeper that we have as we show the evolution of the sweeper and why we have evolved it. And then we usually have like a supporting document like this where we have like just short bulleted points of just everything that we have and why we have it. And then as you go through, you can see that, oh, it says here, our new sweeper evolved into a 6-wheel design. And then we show why we did this. And then we have it like how it's going to work and what
The audio's coming in.
We make sure to include all of that. We start talking about our virtual 4-bar and why we decided to implement a virtual 4-bar throughout the season and why we went away from the linear slide method. And then another thing that I didn't really have an example of, but something that we do have, like I can't exactly share this, but we have design drawings of all of our stuff, like handmade design drawings that show our like modules and stuff. And then we also have math calculations, like we had sweeper calculations this year that showed the speed at which the sweeper was coming in or the blocks were coming in. And then we had calculations that would show how fast we could deposit and how fast we could perform our things that needed to be done. So I'm going to stop sharing and then I'll look for some other examples.
Yeah, that's really... It really does do a good job of showing that progression throughout each stage of the competition.
Can you not?
Yeah.
Really impressive. So, what's something that you guys think is unique about your notebook?
The bright yellow color.
Yeah.
It's unmistakable. Well, I don't know if I could say it's unique, but I know it's like rare. We try to tell the story of our team rather than giving them information about like oh, here's our robot, here's what it does, here's like the code. No, we try to like say how we got to that. So like since the engineering notebook is supposed to be a documentation of your process and not just like your final result, we try to like embody that principle. And I think that sets us apart in terms of like the quality of our notebooks from a lot of other teams.
Make sure to show, like as you saw in the CAD section, we showed a progression. We didn't show what our stuff is. We showed reasoning and we showed like how we got there. So I think a lot of our notebook is just the story that we try to.
That's a good principle to follow. Let's see here.
I mean, just like as an aside, there's a lot of stuff about our notebook that we can't really share because it's just not, I guess, shareable in a sense. So we've tried to share like everything that we can or everything that we're allowed to share about our notebook. That way.
Yeah, that's fine.
Things that are like not secret.
Yeah, we really appreciate that.
Yeah, we appreciate anything you guys are able to share. So,
do you guys have any tips for other teams to improve their documentation in their notebooks?
Well,
I know it's kind of hard to say going into this year. It might be very different, but
yeah. I would recommend to write everything down, no matter how simple it is. But you should just write it down. So then when you're going back to look what you did, you don't have to like scrounge around asking everybody like, what did you do on May 15th at 5:15 p.m. You can just look at your notebook or the whatever they have and then just go from there. And it also helps when you're actually like doing something technical. So like if you try like wheel configurations and you wrote it down, which ones worked, which ones didn't, you can just go back to what you had before instead of having to retry everything. And that directly translates to the CAD design, because then you can just take that and say our process was to do a bunch of different iterations of wheel configurations, and this is the first one we did, this is how it went, and you can go from there.
Yeah, and another thing that might be interesting this year for teams to look into is having more interactive things in their notebook, like videos, or I don't know if videos are allowed. I'm not too sure. I haven't checked the guidelines, but since the notebooks are all fully online this year, it might be interesting if teams could submit GIFs or videos of certain aspects, and that might make it a little bit more creative of a notebook in the 15-page limit.
That's actually really interesting. Yeah, I didn't think of that.
What other ways do you guys think you would approach the 15-page notebook?
I'm gonna be honest with you. We have no clue. Like, I would assume it's the same layout, same outline that we have for our old notebook, but it's just every single piece of information that can be cut out will be cut out. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Anything that, like, practically anything we don't need is going to be missing in the notebook, in the new notebook. And as Yash said, if you have like different multimedia formats that we can put in, maybe we can add more information, like how something works and like the design of things. But what's it called? Yeah, I think it's the same overall information, but definitely not even close to the depth that we used to go in for everything in there.
Okay. So how do you think you can try to, let's say, like bring that back? So like there's other ways of communicating with the judges, of course, other than your notebook. We've had presentations in the past. I'm assuming that they'll probably introduce something else
Yeah.
if everything's like virtual or something. So how do you think you guys can bring back some of that information that you might lose in the notebook and still be able to communicate that with the judges?
I think the only way pretty much is a presentation. So you just have to make, I mean, a presentation, that is. I don't want to speak too soon. But it's called, like, you just have to make up for all the lack of detail and information that is in the new notebook in the words that you say in your presentation. So that puts more importance on the presentation, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of going off of the presentation bit. How did you guys like maximize? How did you guys like maximize the amount of like interactiveness with the judges in your, especially for like when you guys won Inspire at Houston 2018? How did you guys make your like presentation stand out compared to the rest of the field?
So a lot of something I'm not too sure like how much of this we can exactly disclose, but some things that we do are we make sure to be energetic and loud, and like if there's somebody in the room next to us, we make sure that we're louder than them, and we make sure that we have the more energy, or we have more energy than they. We try to include like different elements. I guess we show off our robot during the thing, so we like show demonstrations of things, core components, so that the judges can really see features in action.
Right, and as Yash said, we try to make sure that nothing's bland. So like, even though it is like a technical presentation, we do slip in some jokes and like some cheers, chants, random stuff here and there, the whole shebang. But yeah, as Yash said, it's pretty much just like focusing on the core components of the robot. And I guess the memorable part is just having the judges like you. I mean, if you're loud and like funny, and yeah, they'll remember you. That's just how it works usually.
So do you guys think you guys try to emphasize more of the team aspect than any individual like robot component generally during the presentation?
So we
I don't know if I
kind of
phrased
try
that
to
exactly.
yeah we kind of try to emphasize that our team is more than just a robot team. Like we show that we are involved in the community more than we are just focused on like our robot's ability. So I guess that's just one of our biggest things. We show the judges that we're not just a robot team. We're a team that's um, involved in other events and other activities throughout the year. And we try to diversify, and we make sure that we have diversity, and we try to train as many people as we can. We try to have as big an impact as we can. We try to make sure our judges know that.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have any other questions?
So how do you guys do in terms of like your strategy for advancing from competition to competition? Do you guys mostly focus on the awards aspect and having advancement through that way, or do you guys more focus on robot performance for advancement?
Well, I mean, you act like we have a choice. Our coaches and mentors, they make us put a lot more emphasis on like the engineering. I mean, like the notebook aspect, because a lot of the times, like the robot is a lot more fun to do, and like programming and hardware. So, like it's not a bad thing though. Putting emphasis on the engineering notebook is what has gotten us so far in practically all of our years. Like robot performance alone can almost get like pretty much gets you nowhere unless you're like insane. But, yeah. But like I would say that like engineering notebook as a whole is kind of more important to our team just because of like the dynamic that we have and like our coaches and mentors. But it's also important that we don't disregard the robot. So what we do, we have a few people who are like completely essential to like the robot, right? So on the last day, if it's like being programmed, excuse me, it'll be like one programmer, somebody else who are working on the robot, but the rest of the team is working on the notebook at the time or any other like what's called task that needs to be completed. So we try to maximize the amount of work that anybody's doing at one time by like splitting up the tasks.
And another thing that we do is we make sure that our notebook is done before we finalize the robot, or we try to make sure that our notebook is done before we finalize the robot, because the notebook has a lot more advancement slots than the robot does, like throughout all competitions. So you can advance more through the notebook than you can through just robot performance.
Right. So, do you think there's anything that you guys have done that have led to your consistent advancements? Is there anything special, or do you guys think that you guys have just been consistently good and getting better throughout the years?
I think it's a large part of like focusing on the notebook. Like what's it called? Yeah, like we've advanced most of the time through the notebook itself, and as Yash said, there's a lot more slots to advance through notebook. So I would just say our notebook is pretty much what carries us.
Yeah, it's for us. It's like it's a mix of just continuing to be better and better every year, and a mix of knowing what to work on and to work on.
Could you repeat that one? I don't think people could hear you there.
Oh, I said for us, it's a mix of like working on the notebook and knowing what is important to work on. And stuff like that.
Okay, so this is like backtracking a little bit, but how do you guys schedule your time? Because you guys did mention that you guys do schedule out what's going to happen when you guys have like deadlines and stuff like that, I'm assuming. So how do you guys like maintain those? How do you guys keep track of them, and how do you guys actually stick to them?
So like there's no like what's it called? There's nobody like telling you that you have to, but like working together as a team, we just try to get everything done as soon as we can in accordance to the schedule. So like specific teams come in to do their job. So like if part of the robot needs to be built, that means a build team would have to come in during the week to work on it. But then for example, if like something needs to be programmed, the build team can keep on going like on with their daily routine, but the programming team will come in and program the robot. So like each team has to step up when it's their turn to like provide something for the robot in that sense.
Okay.
To an extent, we hold people accountable for the things that they're responsible for, but at the same time, the team also has the mentality that this needs to be done because we all have the same goal of making
So, how do you guys create your schedule? Like, what do you try to keep in mind when you are doing that initial scheduling?
Well, for our initial schedule, we always leave tons of room for what's it called, for mistakes. So it's inevitable for like something in the CAD to go wrong and the whole build is messed up. So like we always make sure that there's room for errors in that, and from there, like we just give a reasonable amount of time for each deadline, if that makes sense. Like programming with odometry, for example, was like 2 weeks or like a week and a half or something. So like we worked from there. Even if it got like pushed forward or pushed back, we'd be okay because you don't need too long to do that. So it's called. Well, it's just every single task was given a certain amount of time based on like the amount of like time that it would take to finish the task itself.
Mm-hmm. And we make sure that we note like when a lot of our most important members are not going to be there or have other commitments, that we can work around those times and make sure that we're getting our work done.
And do you guys usually work until the day before competition, or do you guys try to give yourself a little bit of leeway before those?
We try to give ourselves leeway, but in all of my experiences, it has never worked. we're practically working to the day of the competition every time. But like that's just how it works sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can always make it better.
Yeah, and there's always things going wrong on the last day. Like, yeah.
All right. Are there any questions on the live stream? Anyone have any
No,
questions?
I don't think we have any questions. But if you guys, the viewers, have any questions, go ahead and put them in chat, and we'll answer them. But none right now, so.
Yeah. We've been going for about an hour, I believe.
Yeah, a little bit more than an hour.
Okay. Does anyone have any topics that they want to talk about?
How do you guys feel about the remote events?
I don't know.
I'm not too sure about the legitimacy of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it will be pretty
How it's
difficult.
going to be or whatever.
I feel like I saw somewhere that it's like self-reported scores, something like that.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the kind of sketchy part. I don't
Yeah.
think that's going to be the same for every team.
I feel like they should just do videos. Like that would work a lot better.
Yeah, videos would work a lot better.
Yeah.
Well,
do you guys know any details about what?
I think at some point maybe they'll go back to in-person competition.
Yeah, probably. Wait, do you guys know any details about judging mode or whatever, the mode that we have to turn our robot on?
I do not know.
I'm not familiar.
Yeah, me neither.
Because I heard that you have to make your robot like turn on a specific mode before you run, like for your official runs.
Oh, interesting. I haven't heard of that yet.
It might tie into the new control hub rev thing. I don't know if you guys have looked into it, but they're trying to step away from phones and using the rev control hub to connect directly to the driver station.
Yeah.
What else? Are there any like resources that you guys use often to kind of look into things?
YouTube.
Some things I use, we use YouTube a lot just across the board, but some things that I use just for CAD stuff, because CAD is just like a whole nother thing. I use FTC Discord a lot to bounce around ideas. There's a lot of discussion on there about ideas. A lot of teams coming together to collaborate on things. So that's a really good resource. And then they also came out with this new thing called Game Manual Zero. It's made by FTC teams or alumni from other
I saw
FTC
that
teams.
one.
So I've looked into that a few times. I've submitted. They've asked me for some things to add to that. But like a lot of the CAD things, like pocketing and stuff like that, I try to take from there and because they have a good system for it. So in my first year, I learned a lot from there, but now it's more so from my head.
Yeah, because like FRC has Chief Delphi, and that's always a good source for them.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Oh, and
FTC
there's
has like something equivalent.
no we have a JVN calculator for FTC with all the motors in it and stuff. So that's also helpful for calculations when CADing. So a lot of the resources are actually for CADing than they are for anything else. Because that's one of the most virtual things. CADing and programming. They have like programming resources like Roadrunner libraries. They have stuff like that. They have the.
Do you guys use Roadrunner?
No, we don't use Roadrunner.
I do not.
I know a lot of.
There's
There's also
Roadrunner.
the
There's one
Doge
more,
TV.
right?
Yeah, I
Doge
think
TV
there's a lot.
library.
That's a video processing thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Doge is.
There's Cloud, there's Doge.
Those are less. I believe there was something in the game manual that was added about not changing some like import or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was that made either OpenCV or Doge CV like not legal anymore, I believe.
I didn't hear about that. I just use like most of the things that I make with the software are custom. So like I just make it on my own.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really like using like pre-made libraries just because I don't know what's going on underneath. So
That's really good.
I found it very helpful to talk to like other teams programmers personally, like and like coaches and mentors who are like majors in like computer science or things of those fields. So that helped me a lot. Like with odometry, I would talk to OVJ's coaches a lot because they had theirs working before we did. So they gave me a lot of tips on how to calibrate, how to get it running, things like that.
What else is there? If we're not getting any questions.
Yeah, no questions from stream.
Okay.
Alright.
In that case, I think this will be the end of the second live stream.
Alright.
All right, cool.
Thanks guys for
Thank
watching.
you guys for inviting us.
Yeah. Thanks you guys for coming.
Yeah, thanks.
And we'll see you in our next live stream.
Woo.
Alright.
We will figure out who, when, and where at some point.
Alright.